Greetings, travelers. Today, it's time to become a master of EDM. Dancer, unlike every other class in the game, actually starts from character creation. Your choice of race is either female Mikote, a female Aura, a Viera, or a Hrothgar or a male Rogadin, with no in-betweens. Step 2 is to make sure that your character is in an outfit that shows as much skin as possible, regardless of gender, because Dancer's desire is a world with true gender equality. While that is the second time I've referenced Konosuba in my recent YouTube career, I've actually never watched the show. Dancer is one of 3 physical range DPS we have to choose from in Final Fantasy XIV Shadowbringers. This class archetype is defined as being ranged and having no cast times, making us able to run circles around our poor magical DPS counterparts as they complain about their uptime. While this in theory makes physical range DPS the easiest class type to play, I believe that Dancer, by contrast, is by far the easiest class to play on top of that. You can tell this class was made for a special type of player. Me. You might think that I'm throwing shade, but if you're a healer main and you want to switch to DPS, Dancer is the best choice due to simplicity and unlocking at level 60 in Limsa Lominsa, home of all RP players. While Dancer does the least amount of damage on average, they actually have the highest damage ceiling of its archetype. This is due in part to their gambling addiction and the fact that a large portion of their breakfast is made up by another player. Never fear though, as long as you learn how to play properly, the metagame does not really matter, as every class is currently viable. So if you're like me and you're suffering from Dame Bramage, while also being unsure about your sexuality, Dancer is probably the class for you. To really become a dancer, we have to understand what our priorities are. Our first goal is to be as flashy as possible, and our rampant desire to flex and our innate, insane amount of mobility make sure to never get hit by avoidable damage and show those turrets what they are really missing out on. Priority 2 is to choose a victim to live up to their parents' expectations. This is where I tell you not to parse, as it is a violation of terms of service. Do not download ACT, do not download the FF14 plugin, and do not use this to see who in your party is doing the most damage when determining your friend with benefits. Some common pitfalls among Dancer players is when left with no choice, you can, in fact, partner with another Dancer. This is always better than partnering with a tank or healer at level 80. Also, you gain the ability to buddy up at level 60, so make sure to tell all those scrubs that you can't partner in content below that level. And as always, keep that GCD spinning right round baby right round. Now that I've lost the attention of most viewers, let's talk about how to spread those enemy cheeks. But first, let's hear from our amazing sponsor. Hello there, it's me again. I know you're very happy to see me, so let's just get into it. If you like the content, be sure to subscribe. Special shout out to my 69th subscriber, you know who you are. I never thought I'd have this many people to disappoint. Also, if you want to see more of me, you can always check me out on Twitch where I stream. I could be live right now, you never know, so you better follow. Thanks again, and may you continue to roll high. Alright, let's get through some of that dungeon content. In 4-man instances, always partner up with your other DPS, and use Peloton to turn up the Eurobeat when out of combat. Our first priority is to always use Standard Step on cooldown. This does not only do a ton of damage to all enemies, but is also our buff that we have to keep active for all of battle. Make sure to press the 2 DDR buttons before finishing on your enemies. Now we have 4 breakdance AoE buttons. Begin by using Windmill, dealing damage to all enemies around you. You might see 2 buttons highlighted from here depending on your luck, but always follow up with Blade Shower for maximum style. Here we take a look at what remains. Windmill gives you a 50% chance to have Rising Windmill, and Blade Shower has a 50% chance to give us Blood Shower. If you have both your procs up, use Rising Windmill first, and then Blood Shower to keep it nice and simple. Always remember, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Each of our proc skills also gives us a 50% chance to get that juicy 4-fold feather. Each feather can be spent on an off-global cooldown to weave in between our main dance moves and really get the crowd going. For trash packs, always use Fan Dance 2 when weaving in a freestyle. Just when you thought you could stop spending money on gacha games, both Fan Dance 1 and 2 give you a chance to have Fan Dance 3, which is another off-global cooldown. You might think this is going to make your life complicated, but every time you use Fan Dance 2, just mash like you're going to get that Fan Dance 3 proc, because you can weave both of these fan dances before your next GCD. And no one needs to know that you're mashing unnecessarily unless they can hear your loud ass mechanical keyboard. A couple additional cooldowns to use include Technical Step, which is just bigger standard step, which requires you to press 4 DDR buttons. This also deals a bunch of damage and will buff your entire party. Flourish will also alleviate your gambling addiction and get you all procs that you need every 60 seconds. And finally, just mash Saber Dance when it's up when clearing trash bags. Now that you know how to crawl, it's time to go straight into Savage content. To open our debut on Dancer, we start with partnering with the best DPS we can find. I didn't tell you this, but the current highest individual damaging classes on patch 5.3, subject to change on 5.4 and later, are as follows: Samurai, Black Mage, Machinist, Summoner, and the Elusive Monk. However, if you are really trying to optimize, do not parse, because I didn't tell you to. When beginning our performance, start with casting Standard Step. We do this 15 seconds before we start combat, so make sure to use that battle timer, even though it's probably going to be ignored anyways. Press the 2 DDR buttons that pop up to charge our electrifying moves, but wait to drop the nasty beat until combat starts. Follow up immediately with our Technical Step combo, pressing the 4 DDR buttons, and get that party damage bonus up. We now instantly use Flourish and slap down Devilment to layer our buff buffet. Use Rising Windmill next, so make sure to be in the boss's face at the beginning of our opener. While in this opening state, in between all GCDs, use any feathers that you gain immediately on Fan Dance 1 and mash like you're always going to proc Fan Dance 3. Follow up Rising Windmill with Blood Shower, and our melee phase is now over. You might be nervous because I haven't explained single target yet, but fear not. Much like how Mr. Miyagi taught the Karate Kid, I have already taught you your single target rotation when I taught you your AoE rotation. We follow up our melee phase with Reverse Cascade, the third button of our single target rotation, and then follow up with Fountain Fall, the fourth button. These also grant you a chance for feathers, just like Rising Windmill and Blood Shower. We should now have Standard Step back up if your party utilized the battle timer properly. Make sure you get another standard finish in while we still have our Technical Step and Devilment buffs up. And finally, mash Saber Dance because it should be up by now. You have completed your opener and everything you need to know for all your burst phases. When utilizing our single target combo, our first button is Cascade, which gives you a chance to proc Reverse Cascade. However, we always follow up with Fountain next, just like we follow up Windmill with Blade Shower. Now use Reverse Cascade if it's up, and then follow with Fountain Fall if it procs, thus completing our 1, 2, 3, 4 for single target. However, things get a little bit different from here. Save at least 3 feathers until we get our buffs back up. Do not spend them immediately when trying to optimize your damage. Only use a feather outside of your buff windows when you get a 4th stack. Similarly, our Esperate gauge, which is used for Saber Dance, should only really be used if we're about to hit 100. Use it around 80 or 90 meter outside of our buff window. Make sure to use Standard Step every 30 seconds even if you're in the middle of your typical 4-button RNG combo, because it will not drop the combo. Finally, we get to use Flourish every minute compared to our big buffs which come up every 2 minutes. When you see Flourish is about to come up, make sure to use all of your procs first. This is the time when we get to bend the rules a little bit. If you see that you're running out of time, you can feel free to ignore the second button of either of your combos, if it means that you don't overwrite your actual proc abilities. Do not miss the Flourish window, or else your burst windows will be small and wimpy instead of big and strong. I don't want you to feel bad though, so feel free to overwrite those procs if you would otherwise miss your Flourish timing until you get more comfortable. The cooldowns you need to keep track of on Dancer are Standard Step, Flourish, Technical Step, and Devilment. However, you should always immediately follow up Technical Step with Devilment, so you really only need to keep track of these 3. You might think that there's a lot to keep track of, but you will quite literally press the same 4 buttons for about 90% of combat. I'm not even kidding when I say that Dancer is bar none the easiest class to play when trying to get into high-end content. However, Dancer is also known for some of its other utility outside of its damage mode and buffs, so let's get our other utility off global cooldowns out of the way. En Avant is a dash that we have 3 charges of, and we gain a charge every 30 seconds. A great tool to quickly reposition if you were caught sleeping. Just make sure to not launch yourself off a cliff. Cure Waltz will also heal all allies around you and your significant other. These AoE heals stack, so if everyone is clumped on each other, it is not bad for supplemental healing when you really need it. Shield Samba will give your party a 10% damage mitigation, which can really help for heavy-hitting raid-wide attacks such as Absolute Zero, something I'm sure your masochistic scholars will appreciate. We also have our standard tools like Arm's Length to avoid most knockback mechanics, and Head Graze to interrupt those spooky attacks. The last thing I haven't talked about is improvisation. We only use our freestyle when you can't do anything else and the boss is jerking off somewhere. It will give you some free points towards Saber Dance and make it a little easier for your healers to top everyone off. I have taught you everything you need to know to prepare this buffet. It's up to you to meet those sanitation requirements and start earning those tips. Let's get out there and make someone else do all the hard work for us.